Hello, and welcome to another video from the YouTube channel, From Religion to Agnostic. Mizraim is the Hebrew and Aramaic name for the land of Egypt, with the dual suffix, aim, perhaps referring to the two Egypts, Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Mizraim is the dual form of Matzah, meaning a mound, or fortress, the name of a people descended from Ham. It was the name generally given by the Hebrews to the land of Egypt and its people. Neo-Babylonian texts use the term Mizraim for Egypt. The name was, for instance, inscribed on the Ishtar Gate of Babylon. Ugaritic inscriptions refer to Egypt as Msrm. In the 14th century BC Amarna tablets it is called Misri, and Assyrian records called Egypt Musa. The classical Arabic word for Egypt is Misr and or Misru, the name that refers to Egypt in the Quran, though the word is pronounced as Ma to the power of 1 pounder in Egyptian colloquial Arabic. Some ancient Egyptian inscriptions at the time of Pharaoh Amenhotep IV refer to Egypt as Masara and to Egyptians as Mazrawi. According to Genesis 10, Mizraim son of Ham was the younger brother of Cush and elder brother of Phut and Canaan, whose families together made up the Hamite branch of Noah's descendants. Mizraim's sons were Ludim, Anamim, Lahabim, Naphtuhim, Pathrusim, Casluhim, out of whom came Philistim, and Caphtorim. In the book of Exodus, it is considered the house of bondage. Regarding the Passover, Moses says to the sons of Israel, "Remember this day, in which ye came out from Mizraim, out of the house of bondage. For by strength of hand the Lord brought you out from this place, there shall no leavened bread be eaten." The book of Deuteronomy forbids the sons of Israel from abhorring a Mizri, an Egyptian, because you were a stranger in his land. According to Eusebius Chronicon, Manetho had suggested that the great age of antiquity of which the later Egyptians boasted had actually preceded the Great Flood and that they were really descended from Mizraim, who settled there anew. A similar story is related by medieval Islamic historians, such as Sibd ibn al-Jawzi, the Egyptian Ibn Abd al-Hakam, and the Persians al-Tabari and Muhammad Qandamir, stating that the pyramids, etc. had been built by the wicked races before the deluge but that Noah's descendant Mizraim, Mezar or Mezar, was later entrusted with reoccupying the region. The Islamic accounts also make Mezar the son of Abansar or Basar and grandson of Ham, rather than a direct son of Ham, and add that he lived to the age of 700. Some scholars think it likely that Mizraim is a dual form of the word Misr meaning land, and was translated literally into ancient Egyptian as Tarway, the two lands, by early pharaohs at Thebes, who later founded the Middle Kingdom. However, according to George Syncellus, the Book of Sotes, attributed to Manetho, identified Mizraim with the legendary first pharaoh Menz, who is said to have unified the Old Kingdom and built Memphis. Mizraim also seems to correspond to Mizar, who is said in Phoenician mythology to have been the father of Ta-Ortuz, who was given Egypt, and later scholars noticed that it also recalls Menz, whose son or successor was said to be Athethis. However, the author David Rohl has suggested a different interpretation. Amongst the followers of Meskiag Kasha, Sumerian ruler, was his younger brother in his own right a strong and charismatic leader of men. He is the head of the Falcon tribe, the descendants of Horus the far distant. The Bible calls this new Horus king, Mizraim, but this name is, in reality, no more than an epithet. It means, follower of Ars, or Asar, Egyptian Arabic Ars with the Egyptian preposition m equals, from. Mizraim is merely Isra with the majestic plural ending, im. Likewise, that other great Semitic-speaking people the Assyrians called the country of the pharaohs, Musri, Emusri. Okay, so let's reflect. There are a few things to look at here. Number 1, the Ishtar Gate. Let's look. The Ishtar Gate was the 8th gate to the inner city of Babylon, in the area of present-day Hilla, Babil Governorate, Iraq. It was constructed in about 575 BCE by order of King Nebuchadnezzar II on the north side of the city. It was part of a grand walled processional way leading into the city. The walls were finished in glazed bricks mostly in blue, with animals and deities in low relief at intervals, these also made up of bricks that are molded and colored differently. When German archaeologists excavated in Babylon in the 1930s, they dismantled the Ishtar Gate and packed it up to take with them to Berlin. It was meticulously reconstructed in the Pergamon Museum. The gate is 50 feet high, and the original foundations extended another 45 feet underground. The reconstruction of the Ishtar Gate in the Pergamon Museum is not a complete replica of the entire gate. The original structure was a double gate with a smaller frontal gate and a larger and more grandiose secondary posterior section. The only section on display in the Pergamon Museum is the smaller frontal segment. Other panels from the facade of the gate are located in many other museums around the world, including various European countries and the United States. King Nebuchadnezzar II reigned 604 to 562 BCE, the peak of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. He is known as the biblical conqueror who captured Jerusalem. King Nebuchadnezzar II ordered the construction of the gate and dedicated it to the Babylonian goddess Ishtar. The gate was constructed using glazed brick with alternating rows of bas-relief mushusu, dragons, aurochs, bulls, and lions, symbolizing the gods Marduk, Adad, and Ishtar respectively. The roof and doors of the gate were made of cedar, according to the dedication plaque. The bricks in the gate were covered in a blue glaze meant to represent lapis lazuli, a deep blue semi-precious stone that was revered in antiquity due to its vibrancy. The blue glazed bricks would have given the facade a jewel-like shine. Through the gate ran the processional way, which was lined with walls showing about 120 lions, bulls, dragons, and flowers on yellow and black glazed bricks, symbolizing the goddess Ishtar. The gate itself depicted only gods and goddesses. These included Ishtar, Adad, and Marduk. During celebrations of the New Year, statues of the deities were paraded through the gate and down the processional way. The gate, being part of the walls of Babylon, was considered one of the original 7 wonders of the world. It was replaced on that list by the Lighthouse of Alexandria from the 3rd century BC. The front of the gate has a low-relief design with a repeated pattern of images of 2 of the major gods of the Babylonian pantheon. Marduk, the national deity and chief god, is depicted as a dragon with a snake-like head and tail, a scaled body of a lion, and powerful talons for back feet. Marduk was seen as the divine champion of good against evil, and the incantations of the Babylonians often sought his protection. The second god shown in the pattern of reliefs on the Ishtar Gate is Adad, also known as Ishkur, whose sacred animal was the aurochs, a now extinct ancestor of cattle. Adad had power over destructive storms and beneficial rain. The design of the Ishtar Gate also includes linear borders and patterns of rosettes, often seen as symbols of fertility. The bricks of the Ishtar Gate were made from finely textured clay pressed into wooden forms. Each of the animal reliefs was also made from bricks formed by pressing clay into reusable molds. Seams between the bricks were carefully planned not to occur on the eyes of the animals or any other aesthetically unacceptable places. The bricks were sun-dried and then fired once before glazing. The clay was brownish-red in this bisque-fired state. The background glazes are mainly a vivid blue, which imitates the color of the highly prized lapis lazuli. Gold and brown glazes are used for animal images. The borders and rosettes are glazed in black, white, and gold. It is believed that the glaze recipe used plant ash, sandstone conglomerates, and pebbles for silicates. This combination was repeatedly melted, cooled, and then pulverized. This mixture of silica and fluxes is called a frit. Color-producing minerals, such as cobalt, were added in the final glaze formulations. This was then painted onto the bisque-fired bricks and fired to a higher temperature in a glaze firing. The creation of the gate out of wood and clay glaze to look like lapis lazuli could possibly be a reference to the goddess Inanna, who became syncretized with the goddess Ishtar during the reign of Sargon of Akkad. In the myth of Inanna's descent to the underworld, Inanna is described as donning 7 accoutrements of lapis lazuli symbolizing her divine power. Once captured by the queen of the underworld, Inanna is described as being lapis lazuli, silver, and wood, two of these materials being key components in the construction of the Ishtar Gate. The creation of the gate out of wood and lapis lazuli, linking the gate to being part of the goddess herself. After the glaze firing, the bricks were assembled, leaving narrow horizontal seams from 1 to 6 millimeters. The seams were then sealed with a naturally occurring black viscous substance called bitumen, like modern asphalt. The Ishtar Gate is only one small part of the design of ancient Babylon that also included the palace, temples, an inner fortress, walls, gardens, other gates, and the processional way. The lavish city was decorated with over 15 million baked bricks, according to estimates. The main gate led to the southern citadel, the gate itself seeming to be a part of Image Bel and Nimiti Bel, two of the most prominent defensive walls of Babylon. There were three primary entrances to the Ishtar Gate. The central entrance, which contained the double gate structure, two sets of double doors, for a fourfold door structure, and doors flanking the main entrance to the left and right, both containing the signature double door structure. Okay, and second thing is, first Pharaoh Men's, it say above and I quote, however, according to George Syncellus, the Book of Soties, attributed to Manetho, identified Mizraim with the legendary first Pharaoh Men's, who is said to have unified the Old Kingdom and built Memphis. Let's look. Men's, fluid circa 3200 to 3000 BC, was a pharaoh of the early dynastic period of ancient Egypt credited by classical tradition with having united Upper and Lower Egypt and as the founder of the First Dynasty. The identity of Men's is the subject of ongoing debate, although mainstream Egyptological consensus identifies Men's with the Naqada III ruler Narmer, most likely, or First Dynasty pharaoh Hor-Aha. Both pharaohs are credited with the unification of Egypt to different degrees by various authorities. The Egyptian form, MNJ, is taken from the Turin and Abydos king lists, which are dated to the 19th dynasty, whose pronunciation has been reconstructed as Mainij. By the early New Kingdom, changes in the Egyptian language meant his name was already pronounced Ma-Ne. The name MNJ means, he who endures, which, IES. Edwards, 1971, suggests, may have been coined as a mere descriptive epithet denoting a semi-legendary hero whose name had been lost. Rather than a particular person, the name may conceal collectively the Naqada III rulers Ka, Scorpion II and Narmer. The commonly used name Men's derives from Manetho, an Egyptian historian and priest who lived during the pre-Coptic period of the Ptolemaic kingdom. Manetho noted the name in Greek as Men's. An alternative Greek form, Minit, was cited by the 5th century BC historian Herodotus, but is a variant no longer accepted. It appears to have been the result of contamination from the name of the god Minit. Narmer and Men's. Two Horus names of Hor-Aha. The almost complete absence of Men's any mention of in the archaeological record and the comparative wealth of evidence of Narmer, a proto-dynastic figure credited by posterity and in the archaeological record with a firm claim to the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt, has given rise to a theory identifying Men's with Narmer. The chief archaeological reference to Men's is an ivory label from Naqada which shows the royal Horus name Aha, the pharaoh Hor-Aha, next to a building, within which is the royal Nebti name Mn, generally taken to be Men's. From this, various theories on the nature of the building, a funerary booth or a shrine, the meaning of the word Mn, a name or the verb endures, and the relationship between Hor-Aha and Men's, as one person or as successive pharaohs, have arisen. The Turin and Abydos king lists, generally accepted to be correct, list the Nesubit names of the pharaohs, not their Horus names, and are vital to the potential reconciliation of the various records. The Nesubit names of the king lists, the Horus names of the archaeological record and the number of pharaohs in dynasty I according to Manetho and other historical sources. Flinders Petrie first attempted this task, associating Iti with Djer as the third pharaoh of dynasty I, Teti, Turin, or another Iti, Abydos, with Hor-Aha as second pharaoh, and Men's, a Nebti name, with Narmer, a Horus name, as first pharaoh of Dynasty I. Lloyd, 1994, finds this succession extremely probable, and Cervello Ortuori, 2003, categorically states that Men's is Narmer and the first dynasty begins with him. However, Seidelmeyer, 2004, states that it is a fairly safe inference that Men's was Hor-Aha. And lastly, since both Mizriam and the first pharaoh Men's mention this name, Hor-Aha. Hor-Aha, or Aha or Horus-Aha, is considered the second pharaoh of the first dynasty of Egypt by some Egyptologists. Others consider him the first one and corresponding to Men's. He lived around the 31st century BC and is thought to have had a long reign. The commonly used name Hor-Aha is a rendering of the pharaoh's Horus name, an element of the royal titulary associated with the god Horus, and is more fully given as Horus-Aha, meaning Horus the fighter. Man-Ethos Record Egyptiaca, translating to History of Egypt, lists his Greek name as Athathis, or Athotes. For the early dynastic period, the archaeological record refers to the pharaohs by their Horus names, while the historical record, as evidenced in the Turin and Abydos king lists, uses an alternative royal titulary, the Nebti name. The different titular elements of a pharaoh's name were often used in isolation, for brevity's sake, although the choice varied according to circumstance and period. Mainstream Egyptological consensus follows the findings of Flinders Petrie in reconciling the two records and connects Hor-Aha, archaeological, with the Nebti name Iti, historical. Inscription bearing Hor-Aha Serek together with a Nebti name expressed with the game board hieroglyph, which could be read MN. The same process has led to the identification of the historical Men's, a Nebti name. With Narmer, a Horus name, evidenced in the archaeological record, both figures are credited with the unification of Egypt and as the first pharaoh of Dynasty I, as the predecessor of Hor-Aha, the second pharaoh. Theories. There has been some controversy about Hor-Aha. Some believe him to be the same individual as the legendary Men's and that he was the one to unify all of Egypt. Others claim he was the son of Narmer, the pharaoh who unified Egypt. Narmer and Men's may have been one pharaoh, referred to with more than one name. Regardless, considerable historical evidence from the period points to Narmer as the pharaoh who first unified Egypt, see Narmer Palat, and to Hor-Aha as his son and heir. Alrighty, and that will do it for this video. Catch you on the next one. Have a great day, and be safe. If you enjoyed this video, please think about subscribing, as well as hitting the like and sharing would help out a lot. Thank you all, and may the gods guide you in your journey. Stay blessed.